Hello, everybody. AJ Locashio here. I am the founder and executive director at Umbrella US. I'm distracted right now because I'm hearing my computer and I have to stop my sound. There we go. I didn't want to hear myself talking. I can already hear myself in my headphones. That was very, very distracting.
Yeah.
Um, and it would have been very distracting for those of you who were hearing the echo through the microphone. So, anyway, I am here today with Laura Burge, known as Literary Laura. And Laura uses pronouns she, her, is a fiction editor, a writing coach, and a writer. She can be found at literarylaura.com. She works across many genres, but specializes in fantasy, science fiction, magical realism, and fabulism. Anything with a bit of weird in it, and she's game. She's edited more than 100 books with independent authors and publishers, such as HarperCollins and Penguin Random House. So I am super, super, super excited to have you here with us today, Laura. I am going to give a visual description of myself, and then if you could do the same, and then we'll get started. So AJ Locashio, I have blue and black short hair, shaved on one side, and I do have a white streak in it. I am wearing big headphones with a microphone. I have relatively large blue and black glasses, tattoos, and a tank top that says joyful. I do have very light pink skin. And behind me is just a brown checkered background.
So hi everybody. I'm Laura. I'm very, very light skinned, and I have long hair that kind of starts at red into purple and then blue at the bottom. You can't see it as well, but it's very important to note that my earrings say "edit and write" because it seemed very accurate for today. I have a short sleeve dress on that has red and white pattern on it. And behind me, I've got to my left a window looking out. You can see some trees and a bookcase behind me. And to the right, there's a hint of a couch going on. And I've got some big black glasses on.
No Willow.
No, I'm so sorry. It ended up being her nap time.
Hey, when Willow needs to take a nap, Willow gets to take a nap.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She might bust in and ask for lunch at some point. So we'll see if
Okay.
that happens.
Okay. So Willow, Queen Willow, will decide if she is going to join us today or not at her own convenience.
Yeah.
Um, and that is okay. Um,
Exactly.
so, okay, you and I met. It was Jessica Johns, who is the
Mhm.
co-founder of Umbrella US, actually said, AJ, you have to meet Laura. I'm like, okay. So I think it took us a while to connect, but once we
Yeah.
did, we connected very quickly. And you decided that you would love to come on board and be the chief editor of our Neurodivergence Self Advocacy Survival Guide,
Mhm.
because you really believe in that message of, self advocacy is great and it's also bullshit. And it's bullshit because we can't do it in a vacuum, and we
Yeah.
can't do it when other people are not supporting our sustainability as human beings and as an indie community. And we just kind of talked about that, and that conversation went on for a long time. So you decided to come on to that, and that's a big project that
Yeah.
you took on. And we are so grateful to have you doing that. But also through our conversations, you started talking about writers and how neurodiversity was not always um, accurately shown in books, and it
Mhm.
often isn't apparent.
Yes. Yes,
So
absolutely.
talk to us about that a little bit.
So it's been, I mean, the neurodiversity movement in general, right, has just been like growing like wild over the past several years. And in the literary world, we're starting to see some really fantastic, amazing books published, even traditionally with neurodivergent writers. And those are marvelous, but they're also still few and far between. And I saw more and more, as this awareness was growing, literary agents, publishers, all these people were asking for neurodiversity in their clients in the work. And then also being a writer myself and a neurodivergent writer myself, and in writing spaces, I kept hearing all these whispers of, well, this literary agent took on a neurodivergent writer and then cut them because the writing and or accommodations weren't what they were expecting.
Hmm.
And, there's this whole long history of neurodivergent representation. I would say largely autism, represented by people who are not autistic and, shall we say, greatly exaggerated and inaccurate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's all these things, and my ADHD, so I might go a few different directions, everybody. So even like in my own writing, I would write and then I'd be told that I was doing things wrong because my sentences were too long or complicated. And I'm happy to learn and grow as a writer. I think all writers need to. But it was always enforcing this neurotypical way of writing and expressing yourself. And I started working with all of these neurodivergent clients, especially in my coaching, and they'd be stuck either starting a book or finishing it or revising, not knowing what to do. And it wasn't just executive function, causing problems. It was also the standard writing advice doesn't necessarily apply,
Yeah.
And it's just, sorry, am I going too long?
No, not at all. Not at all. There's no such thing as too long. This is live. It may go shorter than an hour. It may go longer than an hour. It's okay. No, so basically what I'm hearing is not only did you notice that in books neurodivergence was not accurately portrayed in books, or it didn't even appear, because that wasn't acceptable. And so when it did appear, it was exaggerated and not accurate to the experience at all.
Mhm.
Often done by neurotypical authors. And then on the other side of that is there are a lot of indie writers who aren't able to break into the field because, and Tamian asked this question, there weren't accommodations that helped them be able to do what they needed. Tamian asked, what do you mean by the accommodations? So if you could talk about that a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my course, I've got, I think, 2 different lessons in 2 different sections that are like all about accommodations. It's a huge aspect of it. And accommodations varies based on the neurodivergent person. So for these specific people who got, agents and then got let go, basically, I don't know specifically what those accommodations were, but oftentimes it can be around communication preferences, either being uncomfortable with like this with video or uncomfortable with phone calls, or it could be, can you please follow up with written instructions for this? It can be difficulties with auditory processing, right? Or needing extra time to make decisions, to go through that processing. It's a whole variety
Or
of things.
I'm going to give you a deadline and not check in with you for months on end. That
Yes.
doesn't work for so many of us.
Yes. I also have a couple lessons on deadlines. because
Awesome.
because you might have people who thrive on deadlines, right? And you have people who are terrified of deadlines, and sometimes those are the same people. Like,
Mhm.
but, so checking in on, can you have check-ins in between, staggered deadlines where you say, okay, send me an update on this day, and then send me some material on this day, and your final deadline's over here, right? I've done this a lot with my coaching clients of it's testing it out, saying, okay, for the next couple of weeks, let's check this out, see how you feel. Because for neurodivergent people, we're so frequently told that we're wrong.
Yeah.
And that we have to change and accommodate, right? And fit into these boxes, that it's, I would say, pretty much entirely across the board of my clients who say, I'm so sorry. I didn't make that deadline. That's my fault. I will try harder.
Shame, shame, shame.
Shame, shame, shame. And even I'm like, I gave you a writing exercise. See what you think. And they're like, I'm so sorry. I didn't do it. I'm like, that's okay. If it doesn't work for you, let's adjust. This is telling us something about your process. Right? And like,
Awesome.
let's stop, pivot, and do something different. This is not something to feel horrible about. Writing
Yeah.
is supposed to bring you joy.
Oh, yes. Writing is supposed to bring you joy. Yes. I'm putting that in the comments right here. Hello, I love that so much. For those of you who like to write, I mean,
Yeah.
I was a public school teacher,
Mhm.
and there were so many kids who hated writing. They
Yeah.
hated it, they hated it, they hated it. Why did they hate it? Because somebody said it has to be done in this one way. It's the
Mhm.
only one way that it works. Versus saying, you know what? There are so many different ways that this could work for you.
Yeah.
For example, I'm somebody, I need to just spit it all out. I need to not worry about anything. Throw
Yeah.
the words either on paper or on audio, and then worry about other stuff. And then there are other people who need to subscribe very specifically to a template of some kind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I actually originally, when I was designing the course and everything, I was going to have one single lesson about potential differences within the text itself that comes from neurodivergent writer, and
Hmm.
it blossomed, and it's its own section.
I love that.
There's so much to talk about, and I got so excited, and I haven't seen much about that at all out there in my deep dives into this research and stuff.
That's true. I mean, we still have all of the people who say you can't start a sentence with and, you can't start a sentence with but, and
Yeah.
very formal type writing, which is one type of writing.
Yes. Yeah.
And
It's
you don't subscribe to that, right?
oh my gosh, no, no. The longer I'm an editor, the fewer and fewer. We'll see what some people think about this. The fewer rules are rules, because it's all about what are your intentions, who is your audience, what do you want to say, how do you want this to come across, and a lot of like neurodivergent writing, if when it's accepted, has been historically considered experimental
Okay.
instead of just a different way to tell a story.
Right. My mind is going, why is it experimental? The writing is there. It's done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's not an experiment to see if it can happen because there it went. It did.
Exactly.
Um, here's a question for you. Um, are all of your clients ND?
No, no. I even have some neurotypical clients.
Good. Yay.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And it's and I the and one thing about this is this helps everybody. I have some, neurotypical clients, and I'm like, okay, let's try this writing exercise. Like, oh, you haven't done any of the exercises. Let's check in on that. And turns out they like to do research and reading and take notes, but they don't like to do the writing exercises. That doesn't help them in their process,
Yeah.
which is vastly different from me and my brain,
Right.
because, mine might get stumped at a whole page of technical information and overwhelmed. and I need something creative to kind of like go through it. And other people are like, doesn't work for me.
Right.
And that's, I mean, you don't want all writers whose brains work the same. That's so boring.
Isn't it? Isn't it though? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm okay. I admit that I am somebody who can get into a series
Yeah.
because I love the way that somebody writes.
Yeah.
And so I become very comfortable with
Yes.
that writing of that person.
Mhm.
So I can understand that, but I don't want to necessarily read textbooks all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are so many different types of writers. I love that. Um, one of the things that you said were that stories shape the way we understand the world.
Yes.
So, how important is that for people to understand, especially the people in the industry who
Yeah.
are not creating space for NDs?
Yes. Oh my God. My excitement about that question could probably last an hour itself. Um, so I mean, this is maybe a weird place to start, but there's a reason that book bans still exist and people are still pushing it, because stories are that powerful, because that's where ideas come from. That's how you dive into somebody else's experience. That's how you understand different perspectives, different places in the world, different possibilities for the future, understanding the past in a real way. It's just, that's okay, obviously, especially me, that's very much how I'm wired, but I feel like humans understand through stories. We've always told stories,
Yeah.
right? That's how we understand the world. That's how we make sense of ourselves and each other and the universe. That's how we figure it out. And so, right now, I think is probably a really interesting time in history with self-publishing and the internet, that we have the opportunity to see so many perspectives and to hear so many stories and understand people who would have been shut out, who have been shut out for so long. And now we have this opportunity to see these different voices. And the thing is, neurodivergent writers have always been here,
Right.
and some of them have gotten published and seen fantastic acclaim, like Virginia Woolf,
Mm.
Neil Gaiman recently. Yes, yes, talked about Neil Gaiman's neurodivergent as well.
Yes.
Exactly. Octavia Butler,
Yes.
so neurodivergent. Agatha Christie,
Hmm.
also neurodivergent. I mean, these are wildly successful, well-known, internationally acclaimed writers.
Right.
And they did amazing things, do amazing things. Neil Gaiman's still around.
Right.
God. And it's always there. And the more, I mean, just imagine what would happen if we allowed neurodivergent writers to fully explore how they want to explore stories,
Right.
right?
Right.
And like,
I
if you
mean,
want,
this is how
yeah,
fanfic happens, right?
yes,
And
yeah,
people love it, but the publishing companies and the people who really hold so much money and power,
yeah,
they're not letting that in.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's so much, like, I don't want it to sound like the publishing people in publishing aren't willing to do this, because the people that I know who are freelance and who are in-house as well, they're all so passionate. I mean, this is not the job to get into to become a billionaire unless you own the publishing company,
Right.
and that's only the big companies. Small publishers,
Hmm.
not so much, right? We care about stories and we care about writers and we care about, making a difference. And it is the higher ups who
Yep.
don't necessarily want to put the money and the training and the interest into it, but it's so important. And the lessons about working with neurodivergent individuals can transfer to a lot of other marginalized groups as well,
100%.
about listening and communicating, and just figuring out what works well. And it's so many strong feelings about this.
Well, neurodivergence is one of many intersections.
Yes.
And when people talk about being inclusive, they often don't include neuro-inclusive.
Yes.
And so you're saying, wait a minute, you forgot something.
Yes.
So let's pay attention to this, not only as folks who are writing, but folks who are reading, folks who are publishing.
Yes.
As we read, we begin to understand other people.
Mm-hmm.
We begin to understand ourselves and
Yes.
have empathy for
Oh,
ourselves.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I can understand so many people and their feelings and all that, and then I can beat myself up for exactly something that I have compassion for another person. The more I read
Mm-hmm.
about other people's experiences, the more self-compassion I learn to have, the more I feel connected to my world. In fact, that was my connection to my world when I was younger. I started reading. This whole arm is attributed to that. I read Alice in Wonderland when I was 3. My dad got me the book at a garage sale, and he would read it to me, and I would sit and like comb his hair and brush his hair, and he would have little tea parties with me, and I read quickly, and I learned how to read, and that was the first book that I read.
I love it.
Right, and I still feel great connection.
Yeah.
To the characters in the book, but also
Yeah.
connection with myself as a human being. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So I don't even remember. I have no idea when I started reading, but my mom still complains actually that when I was young, she would buy me books from the bookstore and I would finish them before we even got home. She was like, you have to wait a few minutes. Why?
Right.
I have the book.
Me, eyes.
Exactly. And it was this wonderful world. And it was partially escape, right? Escaping into the realities of these stories. And it was partially just trying to understand the world around me. Right.
Yeah.
And I find that through stories. I find that through books. You see brand new possibilities open up just by reading a story and going, wait, you can do that? Wait, you can be okay with yourself if you do that? Other people do that? And it can be this amazing connection to, oh, I love so many characters from over this, like they feel like family. I, just like absolutely adore them. Patricia McKillip is an amazing author who wrote fantasy, who helped me get into the fantasy genre. Oh, and just beautiful, lyrical, fantastic, amazing writing and kindness. That always gets me. Kindness in the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I pick up those books and it's just comfort. It just feels so nice.
Yeah.
And that's how I understand the world. And my writing became part of that too. I would write things that obviously it comes from me, but it feels like I'm trying to work things out about the world.
Yeah.
And it's this connection in a way that it feels like you're only allowed in at most with a few other people in the real world. Mm-hmm. This kind of deep connection of understanding every inner thought, good and bad, ugly and beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost what's happening in my head right now is like I'm seeing like this scroll of reading normalizes.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh, there's so many wonderful books, but I recently read Cassandra in Reverse by Holly Smale. It's an autistic main character and author, and it's a time travel story.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Highly recommend to everybody. And it just explores these feelings of I am wrong. Let me try to get it right to fit into this mold.
Yeah.
And until you're like, something's not right here. And it's trying to fit into this mold. And she describes understanding emotions through colors.
Okay.
And it's gorgeous and fascinating and beautiful. And it's described in depth throughout the book.
Wow. Can you tell me that author one more time and the name of the book?
Yes, it's Cassandra in Reverse by Holly Smale, Smale. I'm trying to remember it, but it's literally right over there. Yep.
Okay.
It's fabulous.
I am putting this in the links for everybody.
Awesome.
So they can go look at that if they are interested.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Ooh, I was also going to say that as to this question, it's also a private way to try to understand the world and deal with your own concerns and your own identity and coming to terms with things and understanding. You can sit in a crowded cafe and have this in-depth experience, and nobody else needs to be aware.
Right.
And it's just you, and whether that's as an adult or as a kid.
Right. Absolutely. And on the reverse of that, if you are somebody who connects with others and needs more of that human being interaction, you can, and people have been forever, having book groups. And now we've got online book clubs where people are talking about it, and you can meet lifelong friends.
Yes.
Because of this. And I will say, not everybody is that person who wants to do the book club thing. I am not a book club person, but I have this dear friend of mine. We will go out to eat and we will bring books, different books, the same book, it doesn't matter. And we will have a silent dinner where we sit and we read together. We experience that time together. We eat together. But we don't talk, and if we do, it's very few words. Or, oh, I love this book, or oh, guess what just happened, or oh, I got to that part you were telling me about. But for the most part, we're sitting there having a dinner that looks very different from what most people would
Yeah.
think is a normal dinner. But it works for us because we enjoy that quiet time together.
Yes.
And that just internal exploration that we
Yes.
get to have through the book.
Yes, absolutely. I remember doing this in high school. It was assigned reading, but it was a Virginia Woolf, so it barely counted. But a friend of mine and I, we were just hanging out one afternoon, both reading Mrs. Dalloway. And we just were sitting in the living room reading and occasionally be like, did you get to this part? Oh, whoa. Okay. So we just like stop and chat and get back to the book. And it was just, it's such a wonderful memory. And I have official plans. I just moved to Portland less than a year ago.
Yay.
And and I've got a couple of like lifelong good friends who live here. And with one of them, we have official plans this summer to sit outside and just read books together. That is, yes.
Fabulous.
Yes, it is officially planned.
That's fantastic.
So
That's
exciting.
fantastic. I love it. So, okay, you mentioned earlier that people are starting to understand neurodiversity, or at least hearing the word
Yes.
neurodiversity and starting to be curious about it. How can our stories then grow from authentic places, right? That's really what you're getting at, is people be authentic in their work, in their writing, and a lot of times the process stalls that and says you can't be authentic because it has to fit this prescription.
Exactly.
Can people be authentic and writers at the same time?
Yes, 100% yes. There are some spaces that are becoming more aware of and welcoming in the traditional publishing world. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Elle McNichol or Lizzie Huxley Jones. These are two UK writers who are neurodivergent and who are writing books with neurodivergent main characters. Lizzie Huxley Jones has a middle grade book series. It's brilliant. Check it out. It's Vivi Conway.
There it is right there.
And Al McNichol has some fantastic books out as well. And it's been adapted to a TV show in the UK. Yes. So it's called A Kind of Spark, and it's middle grade novels. And I think the second season just came out or is just filmed, something along those lines. But these are authentic representations from some really fantastic human beings writing these things. And so there's growing room for it. We've got, I'm not going to try to list everybody, but there's some fantastic humans doing amazing things. Louise Gooding came out with a kids nonfiction book all about brilliant minds. So it's for kids to understand what neurodiversity is, and it's really, really beautiful. So there's amazing stuff coming out.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and you have these fantastic partners there's some amazing literary agents, publishers, in-house editors who just have such support, and it's fantastic. And I think
I know that I did not get everybody because I'm trying to make sure I'm listening to you. But we will also, at the end of this, we'll make sure that we have a list of these and we will put them into the comments in both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So don't worry if you didn't get anything written down. We will make sure that we have those there.
Yes.
I love that.
Al
McNichol, it said that she's won some pretty significant awards.
Oh yeah. She is awesome. Doing really, really wonderfully and has amazing stories.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So it's growing and it's getting out there. And so there's this awareness. And as for all the publishing people that I know, whether freelance or in-house, there's this desire to do good and do our best and help writers no matter what at any stage of the process. And and there's this outside the publishing world, this idea of like, we're gatekeepers.
Right.
And it's,
and I mean, yeah, that is kind of kind of what you think, like, this is where I either make it or I don't.
Exactly. And with self-publishing becoming so much more prevalent and respected, it's not just that you can, but people are acknowledging more and more that it's a totally valid way to publish.
Mm-hmm.
I would say freelancers are also in that position to sort of gatekeep. And knowing all my publisher or all my editor friends, it feels kind of silly because, a lot of us are neurodivergent, a lot of us are introverts, a lot of us are just like, I don't know if I can really charge them for that because I want to help them so much. Mm-hmm. It's this constant struggle.
Right.
But we need to make rent too.
Right.
But not everyone knows how to go about it, how to do the support. And we've all been taught the rules, the classes, the style guides, most of which don't account for neurodivergent writing. So right. I've even had fellow neurodivergent editors talk about, oh, wait, am I enforcing neurotypical writing standards? Oh, no.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's not what I wanted to do at all.
Right.
We want to make this room. We want to give feedback that's only helpful and allows people to have their authentic stories. If you've ever seen a website or LinkedIn profile of like an editor, they pretty much all say, I want to preserve your voice.
Yeah.
That's, that's number one. I want to preserve your voice. I want to preserve your story. And so there's
which might be also preserving your style.
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's this gap between sometimes what neurodivergent writers want to write, and then they're told by a professional that this part is not being done right. So they go, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Of course I'll fix it.
Right.
Right? Because you've got that feeling of everything I do might be wrong.
Right.
Because that's what we've been told always.
Right. Especially if, so I love this person very, very, very much. They are dear to my heart. They write the most beautiful stories.
Mm-hmm.
They tell these beautiful stories, and you fall in love with their characters. You fall in love with their characters enough that, let's just say, a character dies, and I cry for hours. Right?
Yep.
Um, they are dyslexic.
Mm-hmm.
They followed an IEP in school that did not support them well, that did not help them. So
Yeah.
they went through school, always thinking that they couldn't, that they weren't able. And now they're realizing, as they get older, that people want to hear their story. And they love writing and spend hours and hours every day doing this, but they are terrified to get into the writing space because they know that their grammar and their spelling and their punctuation, all of it, they know that it's bad.
Yeah.
That's their word, not mine. They
Yeah.
know that it's bad. They know that it's difficult to read,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're never, ever, ever going to get published.
Oh, but that's not necessarily true. I totally understand where that comes from. And I have dyslexic clients as well and everything. And I have some dyslexic coaching clients. And there was one meeting we had where I was just like, you know what, let's test some things out. Because there was still some reluctance to write, and of course, lots of shame and difficulty. And so I shared my screen and tried some different fonts and some different colors. And they're like, oh.
Uh-huh.
This is so much easier. It's so easy now, right? With computers that you want a black background and white text? Awesome. Do you want yellow text and a dark purple background? Okay, your choice.
Right.
Whatever works for you and your brain and your eyes, you can absolutely change that up. But it's so ingrained that this is the one way to do it.
Right.
That we don't even think about it.
And how dare you use the tools that are there to help you?
Exactly.
Because, right, we are told in school, even at the college level, even, don't use those tools. Don't use those tools. Don't use those tools. You have to use a paper dictionary to figure out how to spell a word, which, don't even get me started. As a teacher, don't even get me started on that when I can have a student whip out their phone and, figure it out. They're, okay, I'm not going to go down that road. I know that he is not the only person who goes through this feeling, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, there's so many amazing stories out there. You don't have to have perfect punctuation or spelling, and there are so many tools that can help, and there's speech to text, which can really help kind of get you out of that, being stuck staring at a screen and whatever feelings and fear come up with that, right? And there's such a big thing that for me personally in my own life over the past few years, it's like this very slow dawning realization of not everything has to be a struggle.
No. What? Okay, so first you tell us that writing is supposed to bring joy, and now you're saying that not everything has to be a struggle. You are a storyteller. So okay, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
how can we, or all of this that we're talking about, how can the fact that not everything has to be a challenge, the fact that there are tools out there, and the fact that there are folks out there who are happy to work with people in a different way,
Yeah.
and people are becoming better
Hmm.
at listening
Hmm.
and hearing needs. Um, how does all of that come together to shape the future of neurodiversity in literature?
So I literally had a dream last night where I talked about the optimistic, the pessimistic, and the realistic answers to that question. I don't know why. It was a whole thing.
Okay.
But in terms of between realistic and optimistic, um, kind of a hope is that more and more neurodivergent people will be able to feel comfortable writing and revising and sharing their stories in the way that they want to tell their stories. That there will be professionals who are also neurodivergent. I mean, it's a very creative field, and a lot of neurodivergent people tend to show up in creative fields.
Right.
So, if there's this understanding and support on both sides, then I can see potentially this giant variety of literature that, and everyone finds something that speaks to them. And you see that there's not just one right way to tell a story, and there's not just one right way to experience life or to think or to have emotions, right? And so people can go to different sections of the bookstore. People can see different structures, even among experienced professional editors. There's this belief that there are only a couple of story structures in the West
Mm.
that are valid story structures. And I don't agree.
I would highly disagree with that as well.
So being able to see these different story structures, being able to see these different stories, these different voices and experiences everywhere, and letting out the weirdness, as weird as we want to be, as
Yeah.
different as we want to be, and having it out there and be part of normal literature, not necessarily experimental.
Yeah. I have to share this one. I disagree. I disagree. I love it. Okay, I love this question. I'm going to share this. So, you have somebody who's going through the writing process and they're using their yellow text on black
Hmm.
paper. That's going to change,
Yeah.
but does it have to?
I think it's going to depend on the author, on the audience, and on the publisher. So if an author is self-publishing, obviously they'll have a little bit more say in that. And there might be some, financial realities at that point of,
Yep. I was going to say there's some significant financial realities for this. I had my planner
mhm.
printed with white ink on black paper,
Ooh.
and it costs significantly more to do
Yep.
that than it does to print on white paper with black ink.
Yeah.
So yeah, that those financial realities are definitely there.
They absolutely are. And maybe that's going to be part of a future revolution of, we don't always have to have white paper, because that's where it comes in, right? Is using all that ink on every
Yeah.
page or using unusual stock.
Yep.
Maybe we start creating, I don't know much about paper making, but like, different colors. Maybe it doesn't all have to be stark white. And that could be part
Yeah.
of the process.
I mean, e-readers have started doing that,
Yeah.
where you are able to get some different color options. I mean, I never ever read on white. I always read
Hmm.
white, white print on black background.
Hmm.
Always, always, always.
Hmm.
Um, And so the, digital tools are becoming better for that. And of course,
Absolutely.
the environment as well, in one aspect, but not in other aspects.
Yeah, complicated.
But there are people who love to have those books in their hand and
Yeah.
the way it smells and that texture and that,
Yeah.
realism that comes with holding a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for the question, I think it depends on what your goals are as well as an author. Is
Yeah.
it just for you on the screen helping you get the words on the page? Or is that part of who you want to send it to? Maybe if you're writing a children's book that's smaller, illustrated, children's books are already expensive to get printed because of the
Yeah.
illustrations. But maybe that's more able to play with.
Right. And maybe different sections of the book and things like that. But again, that's something that you talk with people
Yes.
about, because a lot of us have read books that have little excerpts and pieces and things in there that really
Mhm.
help us to understand and connect with the author or a character in the book because of the use of color or a graphic of some kind or
Yep.
a text that's different in the story
Yeah,
or something.
exactly. Exactly. Playing with formatting as well.
Leela says somebody needs to figure out how to make the book smell. Yeah. That,
Yep.
like, if you could get that old book smell, and
Oh my
I would say
gosh.
just the feel of a book in your hand is just, come
Yes.
on.
Yes. One of my favorite things is that I saw a quote that was saying, basically, these kids today, books will never be the same. I can't believe everything's changing. And it came from like Aristotle.
Uh-huh.
Like, like books are dead has been happening for thousands of years.
That's true, and yeah, it is. It is. I mean, my son is 24 years old and
Mhm.
still, a lot of people think that he would be all digital everything, but not when it comes to reading a book.
Yeah.
When it comes to reading a book, he wants to go to the bookstore or the library
Mhm.
and get the book and have the physical copy in his hands at like,
Yep.
and for him, he says it makes me nauseous to read it on a screen. I
Yeah.
prefer,
Yeah.
there's some neurodivergence right there that we need to think about our
Yep.
readers.
Absolutely.
So your
Yes.
course is not only for neurodivergent people.
Yep. All neurotypes are welcome. So it's about working with neurodivergent writers and helping them through the process. And it's absolutely not, here's the one way to talk to or work with or accommodate all neurodivergent people, because that's impossible.
Yeah.
But it does pose questions to ask. It gives examples. Part one is all about, if you're less familiar with neurodiversity, talking about a lot of common experiences for neurodivergent people, and that's struggles and strengths, and the things that are a bit of both,
Yeah.
sometimes depending on the person or the day or the
Yeah.
minute.
Right, because it's a community effort, or it can
Yep.
be for those who want it to be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so talking about how to work with neurodivergent writers and help support them, questions to ask, things to look for, intentions about the text itself. Again, I've got that whole section about differences within the text itself, which I found really fascinating. I got really excited about it. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and then the fourth section is all about longer term relationships with these clients. So it's especially if you have authors you work with across several books, or if you're a literary agent, or if you're a book coach, how do you really support and build that healthy, trusting relationship with understanding and boundaries on both
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that this course, if you're ND,
Mhm.
this helps you come into a safe space to, if you're already a fantastic self-advocate and you feel really comfortable and strong as a self-advocate, you're coming into a space where you know that you are safe to be that.
Yeah.
And also, if you're ND and you are not comfortable and confident as a self-advocate, you can learn that through the process.
Yes. And
Yay, we love that.
yes. And a big
Yes.
thing is that I absolutely advocate that you don't ask for a diagnosis. You don't assume a diagnosis. These are things that you do for everyone you work with.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Right? Because that's what neurodiversity is.
Yeah.
You just a bunch of unique brains across the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Now there's also that other part, which is for people who are not neurodivergent,
Mm-hmm.
that this is equally good for them to,
Yes.
number one, learn about neurodivergence
Mm-hmm.
and neurodiversity, two different things. Neurodivergence
Mm-hmm.
being having a neurological condition that is not accepted. Right? It's really
Yeah.
about being accepted
Yeah.
the way society says we should be
Mm-hmm.
versus neurodiversity, which is everybody thinks and behaves differently and uniquely, and that's okay.
Exactly.
Um, so, so for the neurotypical folks who might be supporting writers or who might be writing
Mm-hmm.
and needing to make sure that they are including accurate representation if they're writing about neurodiversity in any
Yes.
way. All of that is also something that can be found within this course as well. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So it goes into a lot of. Ooh, I just had a neurodivergent moment where I just thought about like 15 things at once.
Cool. Bing, 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 bing,
Woo! Exactly. So it's also for neurotypical people, and I I don't want it to come across as it's only if neurodiversity is a special interest of yours, right? Or you happen to know you have one author who stands out as neurodivergent and you don't know how to work with them. I mean, yes, it helps with that as well, but it's also just you're working with creatives, you're working with people who have different kinds of brains, and this is about checking in with them. And it's, I think it's going to help people as well to realize, again, things that you don't think are actually options of, oh, you can ask to not get on phone calls, right? You
Yep.
can ask for follow-up information. You can ask about intentions from the writer. You can ask about intentions, to your editor, to your publisher as well. It goes both directions. And it's important to have those possibilities pop up. It's amazing how just like sometimes small sentence you can say, I had no idea. I had no idea we could do that.
Right.
And it
Or
just,
maybe for those folks who maybe think that they're neurotypical or haven't had the joy of being able to be safe in their own
yeah,
um, way that they think and behave in this world, they
yeah,
can start kind of exploring that a little bit through this as well.
absolutely. And I've tried to make, I'm sure I didn't do it perfectly, but I tried to make this as neurodivergent friendly as possible, which hopefully is friendly for everybody. But transcriptions for everything. We've got video, audio, captions, all that kind of stuff.
Excellent.
Quizzes, questions, all these things. And it's also, I have a couple of points where it says take a break, take a drink of water.
Okay.
It might take more time for you to process this, or this was kind of a heavy one. Take some time. I think just the idea that we can take time to process
Yeah,
is not something that's widely accepted, which is just silly.
it is silly. That is very, very silly. Yeah. When you think about it, right? It's like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Or we think that it's okay up until like the end of the third grade, and then suddenly we no longer need that time. Um,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah, like fourth grade hits and bam. Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
As you see, I think a lot through school.
Totally.
So I absolutely adore that you are doing this. People can find all of this information on your website
Mhm.
at literarylaura.com. And how can they best connect with you? Can they connect with you through that website? Is there a
Yeah,
contact form on
I've
there?
got a contact form on there. I'm also at Literary Laura kind of everywhere.
Okay.
Like Instagram, I'm somewhat on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, various Discords. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what other social medias exist right now. Um,
Okay, perfect. I'll add that on here actually.
awesome.
I'll put that on here. So literarylaura.com and at, let me make sure I spell it right.
Yeah, if people have questions or just want to chat, as you can maybe tell, I love talking about this stuff.
Well, I mean, our conversations have been very different than my conversations with anybody else, which is wonderful, and I just love the freedom. Like I want you out there. I want anybody who even is thinking about writing to talk to you and know that writing can be joyful. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be something that you hate. And people have a story to share.
Yeah,
And there are people who want to hear their stories,
exactly. Exactly. We need more in the world. There aren't
right?
enough books yet.
There are never enough stories. Never,
Never enough.
ever, ever. That
Never
is
enough.
one thing. That is one thing that we can never have enough of, for sure.
Mhm,
For sure.
mhm.
Do you have any last words that you want to share?
I thank you so much for having me. It is always such a joy to talk to you, and thank you to people showing up and listening to me talk about things that, if you run into me on the street, I'll probably talk to you for like 15 minutes about it anyway. I get really excited.
I love it. It's your passion. It's what you do. You are exceptional at it.
Oh, thank you.
We are so grateful to have you on our team, and also in the indie community, supporting all of those folks who deserve to have their stories heard. For everybody listening, we will put those books that you were talking about, we will put those in the comments. I have a feeling there might be one or two others that we could list in there as well.
Oh, yes.
But we will have those in there. Give us a few minutes once this is over, and we will get those in the comments here on YouTube and LinkedIn. Um, other than that, you can find Laura at literarylaura.com and at literarylaura on socials. And you can find us at, do you believe I don't have a banner made for this one? What's wrong with me? You can find us at umbrellaus.org. If you are watching and you are interested in contributing to the Neurodivergent Self Advocacy Survival Guide, please let us know. You can find information there or contact me at info@umbrellaus.org. With that, we will see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.